Good morning. I understand that there's a cheer that you do in Ohio, but I'm going to let Valora do that. So it is absolutely delightful to be with you here today. And let me first say, both with my professional hat on at NAEYC and as a mom of a 10, 8, and 7-year-old, thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for dedicating your lives to make sure that every child in this country has access to a high-quality early learning experience. It's an honor to be with you today, and this is such an exciting time in the field of early learning. We have so many new investments going into our field. Federal, state, local, public officials in red states, in blue states, are paying significant attention to early learning. Their commitments include increased funding, better systems alignment, and a growing recognition that success must include a commitment to quality. The science is clear. It's not just any early learning environment that changes outcomes, it's high-quality early learning environments. And in my opinion, there are 4 things that have created this unprecedented attention. The first, and you know this better than anybody as early childhood educators, when you get down on the floor and you play with an infant or a toddler and they roll the ball back and forth to you for the first time, or their babbling turns into words, we know that something significant is occurring inside their brains. And in the past 20 years, the neuroscience has confirmed what social science has long suspected, that during the first 5 years of a child's life, there's an unmatched explosion of brain activity. This is the time that language is developed, when children are developing their fine and gross motor skills, when they're having their first and most impressionable social, emotional, and bonding experiences. And the more recent science has confirmed that these are the foundations of executive functioning. This is the ability to control emotions, to follow instructions, to be to develop critical logical reasoning skills, and to multitask. What seems like a basic game of Simon Says in preschool is actually exposing kids to the very 21st century skills that they need in this world. Secondly, and most importantly, in the past 20 years has been the confirmation of the economics of early learning. Nobel laureate economist James Heckman and former vice president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, Art Rolnick, have demonstrated the economic modeling that points to anywhere between a $7 and a $16 return on investment for high-quality early learning. Third is the standards and accountability movement in K-12 education. As I said, I have a 7, 8, and 10-year-old, and I can assure you that the kindergarten classroom that each of them entered was light years from my kindergarten experience almost 40 years ago. We have incredibly high expectations of 5-year-olds. Many of them hit the ground running, prepared for those expectations, while others struggle and rarely catch up. And finally, and arguably the most important, is the moral imperative that we all share. And it's the moral imperative on which this country was founded, the basic value of fairness. We've always held tight to the notion that everyone has a chance to live to their full potential, to live the American dream. I once heard a Fortune 500 CEO liken this concept to a game of Monopoly, that everyone starts go with $200, and as you go around the board, it's a matter of choice and chance, but everyone starts go with $200, and that's fundamentally simply not happening right now. We're serving a mere fraction of the young children who are most in need of high-quality learning, birth through kindergarten. So NAEYC is 90 years old this year. We have 65,000 members, early childhood educators, faculty, system leaders, advocates. And our strategic direction leads us to 2 critical goals. First, that every single child in this country, birth through age 8, have equitable access to developmentally appropriate, high-quality early learning. And that second, and why we're here today, is that the early childhood profession exemplifies excellence and is recognized as vital and performing a critical role in society. This means that we end the debate about whether we should either be keeping kids safe while their parents work or capitalizing on the brain science we know about what it takes to give kids a real shot at success in school and in life, and we must do both. So what's our path to progress? If there's one thing that keeps me up at night, it's thinking about our obligation as an early childhood field to deliver on the promise of early learning. We've established that the stakes are high, and as more and more states and the federal government invest in this value proposition, we as a field have to deliver. We have to deliver. And right now, there's a significant disconnect between the sophistication that's required in the classroom, the brain science, and the skills and competencies we require of early childhood educators. There are 2 million people in the field of early learning in our workforce. 1 million of them are in formal settings. The other 1 million are running licensed and regulated family child care homes. Most states require a high school diploma if you're being funded through child care dollars, and a bachelor's degree if you're teaching in a preschool. Again, for most kids, this is the same setting with the same teachers. Only 50% of program-based educators have a post-secondary diploma, and only 30% of those running family child care homes have. Their average wages, your average wages, are $10.40 an hour. It doesn't add up. It's the most critical time in a child's life developmentally, and we're paying minimum wage or less for early childhood educators. That's not okay. So where are we headed? A couple of things. I am, at my core, I believe in the notion of systems building. I believe that there is not just one thing that fixes all of our problems, but I have to tell you, I'm going to violate my own rule, because in this instance, there are some magic policy fixes. And where we have made the least progress in our systems building are the systems and structures that support early childhood educators. We have got to fix that. So NAEYC is approaching this with a theory of change with, I call, 3 buckets. Our first bucket is simply marketing and communications. We have set out to tell the world that early childhood educators are brain builders. Early childhood educators are not babysitters, they're brain builders. And I have good news for you. I'm going to do a session this afternoon on some of the polling that we have, but I have to tell you, we've got great news. We polled likely voters. You know what they said to us? They said to us that they think that early childhood educators have the same status as firefighters and nurses in their communities. You have status. Really important. So we're setting out with a marketing and communications campaign to tell the world the value of early childhood educators. The second is a policy agenda, and we believe we have launched into a major initiative called Power to the Profession, and we intend, with a whole host of organizations, to name our profession, come to agreement on what we call ourselves. We have not come to agreement on what we call ourselves. We need to come to agreement on what we call ourselves. We need a defined scope of practice from birth through age 8. We need to agree to the range of knowledge and competencies necessary to be considered an early childhood educator. And we need to be involved in setting those definitions. We can't simply leave it up to state systems to do that. Early childhood educators need to be at the table defining this for themselves. Many other professions have done that, and we have not done that the way we need to. Then we can talk about licensing and credentialing, but those steps come first. So I have to ask you, I heard Kim talk a little bit about this, and I'm going to make a plea to you. Normally, I would stand up here and tell you all of the benefits you get if you join NAEYC, your professional association. And I hope many of you are already members of NAEYC. And you do get great benefits. The journals are awesome. The books are awesome. Fabulous conferences, as you hear with Ohio AEYC. But my friends, this is bigger than that. This is about a national agenda we have to create for the early childhood profession. And the only way we are going to do it is if we have an army of early childhood educators out there advocating on their own behalf. And the way to do that is through being a part of this movement that we're creating and this professional association that we have now 65,000 members strong. Please consider being part of that. I close this morning hoping that I have inspired you to have a sense of urgency. We have to get this right, and the clock is ticking. We owe it to the young children and their families across this great nation, and we owe it to the young children and families right here in Ohio. We also owe it to the women and men who've dedicated their lives to a profession that is not yet recognized as more than a minimum wage service job, despite the compelling science we have at our fingertips. So may the wind be at your backs as you leave here today, ready to redouble your efforts and to serve the youngest children of this great state. Thank you for having me. It is my great pleasure, and I have to say to you, it is such an honor to be on this stage with two of my favorite people, Valora Washington and Maurice Sykes, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Valora Washington.
I am so happy to be at Ohio AEYC once again, and as a native of Columbus, Ohio, I want to say, OH. All right, I love that. I am so thrilled to be here with you today to talk about the power of our profession. And I'm really standing in agreement with Rian. We have got to come together and take a stand to fight these many pressures that we're feeling and to advance our profession in important ways. I want to read to you briefly a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. that I think is very pertinent to where we are as a profession right now. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but one must take it because it is right." Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that now is the time to do the right thing for our children. Right now. Right now. So think about Martin Luther King's questions, and we have to ask, is our work popular? And I would say absolutely yes. The public is more willing, as Rian just said, looking at the polling data, to invest in our field than they've ever been before. Is our work politic? Well, when you get public investment, you get a lot more public scrutiny. And one of the things that we have to realize is it's no longer novel for the governor or the school board to start taking an interest in early childhood, but we have to step to the plate to define what that should look like. Is our work safe? Many of us are not feeling safe right now because change is all around us. Many of us are feeling intimidated or maybe negated by the things that we see around us. But are we doing the right thing for kids? We can't deny there's still huge gaps between what we know should be done for young children and what a typical child experiences today. Now, here's the major question. Do we have the courage and support to take a position that might not be safe, that might not be politic, that might not be popular, but we do it because we know it is right, and I am here to say, yes, we are the people who will stand up for children. We are the people who will stand up for the early educator. We know right now that we have several dilemmas. One of our dilemmas is that there is a huge gap in what is happening for children in terms of the quality of what is happening around our nation. This performance gap is serious, and we take it very seriously. We also realize that we could be facing a credibility gap because as we've promised the nation that they can see definite changes as a result of investing in young children, many of them now are asking us to deliver on the promise of preschool. Change is coming at us from all directions. Sometimes it feels like Goliath just coming at us, but we have to deal with these issues of performance gap and credibility gap. If you're an individual trying to face Goliath all by yourself, it's going to be too big of a hurdle to take those steps because the size and force and direction of change are enormous. We're in a new era of change in our profession, and we have to take steps. We cannot be negated anymore. And that's why, based on my experiences, working deeply with hundreds of early educators across the country, we've developed a four-part pathway to change, how we can work together to get the change that we seek. The first thing we have to do, which we're already doing, is that we love our profession. Loving our profession means that we analyze where we are, we look seriously, we think and reflect on the realities of our situation. We make individual and collective decisions that we're going to do something about it, and we plan and prepare to do that. We then own our profession. That means taking action, making a difference, and we accelerate that action with even more action. Right now, I'm going to talk about those first two steps. The fact that we have to really take a deeper look and have more serious analysis about the situation that we're in. Everybody knows now that the early years matter. But do you also know that the resources that we're given to do the job don't match the rhetoric? It just really doesn't. So we've got to face that reality, and we face these reality knowing the challenges and our capacity to make a difference. One way we make a difference is also to respect our knowledge base, because as I said before, each and every one of us knows more about what our children need than any typical child is receiving right now. So we've got to respect our knowledge base. The second step, we have to plan and prepare for change. Change doesn't just come because we want it to be so. We have to realize that we have to think carefully together about what we as early educators should know and be able to do. We have to recognize that we're in an asymmetrical conflict, that power is not balanced. And so we have to use the strengths and capacities that we have to face these Goliaths. We have to be willing to face them. We have to stand up to them. The way that we do that is we have to have a collective vision about our future. This is a process that NAYC is going to be leading in the months ahead. And we have to share a common identity. We are all early educators. Whether you work in Head Start, whether you work in family child care, whether you work in a public school, whether you work in a community center, we are all early educators, and we need to stand together to make a difference for children. Maurice Sykes is going to join us now to talk about his new book and some of the qualities that it takes for us to make a difference for children. And then I'm going to come back and talk about how we can take specific action for our profession and the children we serve. Maurice?
When people ask you, what do you do for a living? Tell them whatever it takes, because that's what leaders do. Whatever it takes to do the right thing for children. To quote Dr. Martin Luther King again, the time is always right to do the right thing. Right now is the right time to do the right thing for children in this country by engaging in thoughtful, meaningful, purposeful, reflective dialogue and actions that will advance the early childhood education profession. Some will ask, what's the hurry? We've gotten along just fine for lo these many years. Why can't we wait? We can't wait. We can't wait because now is the time. The time is right. There appears to be universal agreement that high quality early childhood programs are a wise investment, and that they are critical to the success of children in school and in life, and most especially for children living in poverty. Early childhood education has captured the attention and interest of the nation as the best first step toward K-12 school reform. We are in the public limelight, thanks in part to new discoveries in the field of neuroscience, the interests of the business and philanthropic communities, economists, military brass, as well as state legislators, and President Barack Obama. It doesn't get much better than that, does it? Everybody seems to know our name, but everybody doesn't seem to know what we do, sometimes including ourselves. However, our 15 minutes of fame is swiftly fading, and we have to do something about it. It is time for us to define ourselves before others define us, as they have in the past. It is time for us to advance the profession by coming to agreement, as Rhiannon stated, about who we are and what we do. Who meets our field-defined early childhood educator qualifications and standards of practice, and who doesn't. In other words, it's time for us to grow up, stand up, and speak up before we get set up. It is time for us to engage in thoughtful, meaningful, purposeful, reflective dialogue and actions that will help us to move our profession forward. I believe that the recent Institute of Medicine, IOM report, Transforming the Workforce for Children Birth through age 8 is a good starting point. In my opinion, the report affirms the fact that you cannot have high-quality programs in schools for young children if we do not have highly qualified and highly compensated teachers and leaders. And speaking of compensation, let me tell you, there is one thing for which I am certain and two things for which I am sure. I am certain that if this were a male-dominated profession, this compensation mess would have been cleaned up a long time ago. And I am sure that we cannot build a robust, viable workforce through the exploitation of women relegated to low status and low wage jobs. I am also sure that we no longer want a worthy wage. We want a living wage, a wage tied into an annual cost of living adjustment. We want to live large, with the means to purchase a Mercedes or a Jaguar if we choose. However, my particular area of interest and intrigue with the IOM report is a section on the leadership competencies that leaders of programs in schools that serve young children have to have. You see, for the past 2 years, I have served as a co-convener of a national effort to define the knowledge, skills, and dispositions needed for leaders to lead high-quality programs in schools serving young children. Leaders, as I like to say, who are progressive in their thinking and transformational in their actions. Leaders who dare to make a difference. This effort, known as the National Early Childhood Leadership Development Summit, is a representative collaborative of organizations such as NAEYC, NAESP, National Head Start Association, the Council for Professional Recognition, the Association for Early Learning Leaders, the McCormick Center, the Council of Chief State School Officers, and the Foundation for Child Development. So while the National Summit enters the dialogue at the leadership level, we are fully aware and mindful of the foundational knowledge and cross-professional knowledge described in the report that are required in order for a system of professional standards and practice to work. Whatever your point of entry into the thoughtful, meaningful, purposeful, reflective dialogue that will advance the early childhood education profession, I beg you not to fall in our usual trap of arguing the fine points of the report ad nauseum, ad infinitum. Let me remind you that time is not our friend. Our 15 minutes of fame is now down to 7.5. May I suggest that while we engage in thoughtful, meaningful, purposeful, reflective dialogue and actions to advance the early childhood education profession, that we simultaneously engage in 10 thoughtful, meaningful, purposeful habits of mind that are common to all professions. First, put customer satisfaction first. After all, without customers, there is no profession. Second, make expertise your specialty. The very word profession implies that you are an expert. Third, do more than expected. Professionals are not bound by time or space. Fourth, do what you say and say what you do. Talk the talk and walk the walk. Next, communicate effectively. Professionals communicate clearly, concisely, thoughtfully, and accurately. Next, follow exceptional guiding principles. Adhere to high values. Next, praise your peers and not yourself. There is nothing more unprofessional and self-serving than telling others how wonderful you are. Next, share your knowledge. Be a knowledge expander, not a knowledge hoarder. Then, always say thank you. Professionals say thank you in a meaningful way that most benefits the recipient. Finally, keep a smile on your face and the right attitude in your heart. Professionals are pleasant even during trying times. I encourage you to embrace these 10 habits as the next bridge to our journey, because while I know that we got all that it takes to advance the profession, it will take all that we got to make it happen. Thank you for listening, and let us march on till victory is won. Now it is my pleasure to bring back to the podium the vivacious, visionary voice of the CDA movement, Valora Washington.
I think we're giving you a message here. Are you getting it? Yeah. We have got to stand up for ourselves, which means we have to prepare ourselves for change. We start by analyzing our situation, thinking and reflecting on our realities and our knowledge. We plan and prepare to advance our profession, understanding that we are in an asymmetrical conflict, making sure that we are clear about our vision and our identity as early educators. The next thing that I want to point out to you in this third step of change is we've got to own our profession. We can't let other people own our profession. They're telling us what to do often, which is not developmentally appropriate practice. So we have got to own our own profession. If we are going to own our profession, we have to be brave and bold. No cowards allowed. This is going to be hard work, very hard work. How do we get the work done? Well, I say let's go back to our ABCs. We gotta affiliate with each other. We've gotta belong to each other. We have to connect with each other. That means being a member of NAEYC, for one. Why do we want the ABCs to affiliate, belong, and connect? For one, it does help your personal growth. Being part of this profession, being at meetings like this is really important to help us grow and know what is happening in our field. The ABCs also keep us current in our knowledge base. The organizations being here, visiting the exhibit booths, there's so much to learn and to stay current on. And it helps us to build our professional community, because one of the things that you're hearing from Rian, Maurice, and myself, no one can do this alone. It's going to take all of us to do it. This means that on a personal basis, you have to be committed to personal mastery. Be a master of working with young children. Be committed to doing your best job with young children. And that means that we have to be part of a professional community, a confidential community with each other, so that we can share and learn best practices. We have to enrich the diversity of who we are, look outside of our comfort zone, and meet new people, being ready to share leadership and building our professional capital. We have to be inspired by all the wonderful examples around us. I hope that as you come to this conference, you will make a commitment to leave here with at least 5 people you really are going to call and keep in touch with, because that's how we build our professional capital, by starting with our everyday challenges and working with people who can help us on our journey. And most of all, if you're in a program or a school, we know more than we're doing. Let's work on aligning what we're doing with what we actually know. All of this takes courage, it takes commitment, and it takes competence. Because if you're courageous and incompetent, that is not going to help us get to where we need to go. So we need to accelerate our efforts. I agree with Maurice. We don't have a lot of time. I don't know if it's 7.5 minutes left, the way he said, but I know that our time is short. We have got to accelerate what we are doing and where we're going. That means that we need to focus on what we want, not focus on what we don't want. We need to gather our allies, make sure we're not walking alone, and we need to communicate with the broader community about what we're doing and what our work really means for our economy and for our society. Martin Luther King said, there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but one must take it because it is right. I want to ask you, are you ready to do the right thing for children? Are you ready to do the right thing for children? Are you ready to do the right thing for the people who work with children? The people who work with children deserve so much more. In closing, I want to read another passage from Martin Luther King, who said, I come here tonight and I plead with you. Believe in yourself and believe that you're somebody, because nobody else can do this for us. Are you ready? Let's build our profession together. Thank you.